who've been through some of these presentations before, but for those of you who are new, because I do see some new faces, a bit of background on what's changed in Norwalk since like the last round of elections. We got redistricted. We used to have 13 districts, now we have 14. So there's an additional district. We did our yearly canvass. Due to the canvassing, there's probably a lot of folks that got made inactive. That's electors that got made inactive. So if you're an assistant registrar, pay attention because there might be a lot of folks showing up that need to be reactivated. We have new tabulators, new ballots, and a new moderator's return. So if you're, yay, yeah, there's some thumbs up on that. So if this is your first election since we've had all of that, you're going to see some new stuff here. We think it's all for the better. It actually saves a lot of time. I think our last election, the Democratic primary, was done and very accurate in a very short amount of time. We've saved our moderators quite a few clock cycles. We can walk through that, maybe not in this space because we're not using tabulators for early voting yet, darn, but we're working on that. We have a new voter lookup interface, which won't impact anyone here, but for those of you working the polls, you might have been used to that sort of orange and red interface that allowed you to look up electors. We've replaced that with something a little more modern looking. And of course, you're probably all familiar with the poll worker portal that has your schedule and your training schedule on it, which we're still growing into a little bit on ourselves. Sorry for some of the confusion on that. We're working on it. That's on us, or me more specifically. So here's an example of our ballot for this year. For those of you who worked the Democratic primary, you know there was one contest with two candidates on it. This is an 8 by 17 inch ballot. Out of the 14 districts, there are 11 unique ballots because of the way the ballots lay out. This is one side of it. There is another side of it that has 3 questions on it about charter revisions. So it's quite a bit more complex than existed in the last election, and I think maybe our municipal elections tend to be a little more complicated, but with the 3 questions and the additional district, the ballots got a little more crazy. One thing I will point out about these ballots is the timing marks have changed for those of you who are ballot clerks. Can I see them here? I can't see them here. But you'll see that there's numbers at the bottom on the long end when you get the ballots, and when you're drawing your lines through the ballots, look for those numbers. That's the line you want to draw it through. So, for spoiling a ballot, which yes, we can get to in a little bit. So before I get started, kind of into the depth of the whole flow of everything, any questions, general questions that weren't covered, other than, where's a printout? We'll get that to you. Okay. So I've broken this up into what happens before the polls open, while the polls are open, and then at the closing of the polls. So we'll start at the beginning, before the polls open. When you arrive, everyone will get sworn in. We're asking everyone to arrive half an hour before the polls open. We think that's enough time to get sort of set up, since there's not really a setup period. That's enough time for ballot clerks to count ballots. It's enough time to get sworn in. One thing I'll point out is that being sworn in is not the same as signing your timesheet. It's a different document in a different location, so please make sure that when you get sworn in and you sign the moderator's return that you were sworn in, that you also sign your timesheet. That way you get paid. That's pretty much early voting responsibilities. One of the jobs is that of a demonstrator. A demonstrator can exist at the polling location or at early voting. In early voting, a demonstrator's job is a little different. One of the things that they'll have to do, especially this year, is direct people between the early voting check-in and the same-day registration line. And that's one of the differences I just want to take a moment to talk about. We're doing early voting. If someone is already registered, they can show their ID, they're given an early voting ballot, and they proceed to go to the ballot clerk and then fill out the ballot and then put it in the tabulator. However, if someone's not registered, they can register during the early voting period. That's a whole other process that results in a different type of ballot being issued. It's actually the same ballot, but it'll show up in a different envelope. I'll show you the different envelopes in a minute. So the demonstrator has to sort out folks as they arrive and tell them, your address has changed. You need to re-register. Oh, you actually want to register to vote. You haven't voted in 10 years, but you want to vote today. You're probably, you've fallen off the list. Let's put you in this line. The demonstrator also sort of makes sure that the line keeps moving and doesn't get backed up in the middle of the room, maybe keeps people outside in the hallway so that the line doesn't get backed up. And then, of course, we ask them, are you registered in Norwalk? Some people show up, they think this is a voting center of some sorts, and they say, well, I live in Westport, can I vote here? That has happened. So that's sort of the overview of what a demonstrator does. Any questions about the job of a demonstrator? Okay. Okay, so now we're going to get on to the responsibilities of a checker. A checker checks the identification of an elector who wishes to vote and compares it to the Connecticut voter registration system, which is where all of the registered voters in Connecticut are listed. So they're going to check their ID and look them up to see that they are in fact a registered voter. If they're registered and there's no information that's been changed, so that means that they can vote, we're going to go ahead and issue them a digital ballot in the CVRS. And yeah, I'm going to show you how to do this because I see people going, hey, wait, how do I do that? And then we're going to give them an envelope with a label on it and send them off to the ballot clerk. I think that's where. So I use the term like check their ID and make sure that their ID is acceptable. I just want to take a moment to describe what is acceptable identification. And there's two general types of acceptable identification. If someone is already registered in the state of Connecticut, the stuff on your right is what is an acceptable form of identification according to the state. Okay, this is the law. It's a social security card or any pre-printed form of identification that shows your name and address, name and signature, or name and photograph. That's an acceptable form of identification. If I claim to be Matthew Lane and I show you identification that meets these standards, and I'm in the CVRS, I can proceed. Okay. If I don't have this, I have to fill out a form ED 681 asserting that I am in fact Matthew Lane. Okay. I guess I'll take this moment to just throw one other piece of information out there. There has been some discussion, or let's say there was, Diana, make sure I say this right. There was a presidential directive that would have changed how identification was done at the polls. It's my understanding that because this is a municipal election, not a state election, that directive does not apply here. And as such, we've been directed by the Secretary of State to continue as is.
So, yeah, real quick. So, you may have heard discussion, or voters may have heard discussions about an executive order. So, anything pertaining to that does not apply for 2025. There is still discussions on potentially it being a thing for 2026, but as of now, it is not. So everything will proceed as it always has. There's no actual tools or resources for us to confirm anyone's citizenship. And we would need to have access to all of those resources. So for now, everything remains the same. If anyone brings it to your attention or challenges you on it, just have them contact the registrar. If it's during early voting, they can come see us in 103, and I'd be happy to educate them. But for now, just know everything remains the same. And the biggest takeaway from this slide, and I know Matt already addressed it, or he's going to, is please do not turn anyone away if they do not have their license, or proper identification. A credit card with a signature qualifies. You're not verifying their address, only their identity. And please also keep in mind, if all else fails and they don't have it, but they're listed in the voter roll, please do not turn them away. They will fill out that form ED 681. I use the example of, we went away, I was going to vote at Martin School. There were 2 checkers who took their job very seriously. They did not want me to vote. I knew that I was who I was. My wallet was in a beach bag because we had just gotten back from a trip. And I had a 20-month-old, and there was no way that I was going home during like the just lift of crazy COVID and coming back to vote on election day. So thankfully I challenged them and was able to get them to understand that they couldn't turn me away. But please don't turn anyone away without checking with the registrars first, okay? Because typically if all else fails, they can sign an affidavit, and trust me, if they sign it and it gets challenged, they're gonna be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you. So, go ahead.
You're going to have these forms ED on the table, and what exactly is the form asking, though? I mean, if they don't have...
The form is basically saying, I attest under perjury of bad stuff that I am who I say I am.
Okay.
Right, so, you know, Matthew Lane's in the list, but Matt doesn't have any ID on him.
Okay.
Right, I can sign this, says I attest that I am who I say I am. Yeah, okay. Right, and you know, so this is what you need to check in, okay? What's over here on your left is what you need to register to vote, or to change your registration to vote. And we're going to talk a little bit about changing registrations in a bit. But this is a copy of your current valid photo identification that shows name and address, a little bit more. A current utility bill, bank statement, government check, paycheck, government document. It's a little bit more intense. This is what you need to register to vote. A lot of people keep this slide printed out if you're an assistant registrar, or you can find, this is directly from the state's website. I didn't make this up.
It can be a library card with their photo, it can be a Costco card with their photo, it can be a credit card that does not have a photo, but it's just signed in the back. So those are kind of the ones that are gonna come up the most often. A utility bill, you know, a paycheck, so just, yeah, keep all of that.
Yeah, right. When it comes to just checking in, some people have their utility bill on their phone, and if they show that to the moderator may accept it. I've seen that happen. That's certainly valid. So, you know, if you do have any questions and you're a checker, call the assistant registrar, call the moderator. Remember, if you're a checker, you want to keep the line moving as well. So don't get hung up trying to wonder if, you know, the statute was written in a certain way to accept a Costco membership versus a Northeast utility bill that's on a phone. Let the moderator deal with that.
Yeah,
So.
Don't stress about it, like if all
Yeah.
else fails, just,
Yeah.
you know, grab the monitor,
Yeah.
send them over to the assistant registrar, and
Yep.
they'll confirm, and if they don't know the answer, they'll check it.
Right. Absolutely. If you're not 100% sure, let them make the decision. So are there any questions about identification, the 2 different types of identification? I've got a quiz later on this. No, I don't. Maybe I do. Okay, so just a quick point of note here. If you're in early voting, you have access to look up everybody in Norwalk and look up their history and their situation. When you sign up to be a poll worker, you take an oath to be fair and impartial. but it also means don't just look up your friends and family and go, oh, I was always wondering which party that person was a member of. So please don't do that. Everything you do is logged in the system. So.
One thing I want to point out to be mindful of is just make sure that you're completely nonpartisan. You don't want to ask questions like, are you a Republican or are you a Democrat or anything like that. Anybody can check in. You're there to help everyone, including the people that you're working with. Just no politics at all, completely nonpartisan.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think that was just that. Thank you, Diana. That was the sort of overview of that. So now we're going to get into the CVRS, which is a Connecticut voter registration system. If you're a checker or an assistant registrar, you will be seeing screens that look like this for many days in your future. If you've already done the job, you're familiar with this. I know at one point we had said that Connecticut was going to replace the CVRS with something called Total Vote, and they were, and then they decided not to. So if you're new to that, sorry, we didn't replace it. We're still using the old software. So I think the point of this screen here is if you are running into problems, it won't log you in. There's this little sort of black circle thing up in the upper right-hand corner. Look for that. It's got to be there. If it isn't, click the blue circle thing and make it the black circle thing. You'll see when you get there. I don't know what else to say about that. This ancient old system was built in the 90s, and there's things like that pop up all over the place. So I'm going to try not to just harp on it the whole time. So here's the basic walkthrough of how a checker is going to go ahead and register someone, issue someone a ballot. When you log in, you're going to click this thing over here that says early voting, and it's going to bring up a search screen. And we're going to search for that registrar by, the easiest way to do it is by date of birth. If not, you can use first and last name. This is like most search engines when you're searching for anything. If you want to look up Matthew Lane, you could type in Matthew Lane and it'll bring up all the Matthew Lanes. But you can't put in Matt Lane and expect it to find me. But you can put in Matt asterisk Lane, for those of you who understand how asterisks work. Okay. So really the easiest thing to do, since most people will hand you their driver's license, is to type in their date of birth, and then it'll bring up all the people in Norwalk with that date of birth, and you'll find Matthew Lane on the list. That list looks something like this. Date. We're going to find the right person on the list. We're going to check the box next to their name. Okay, don't expect the first person on the list to be the person that you want to issue a ballot to. If you don't check this box, the next step you're going to be issuing a ballot to the wrong person because it automatically checks the first person on the list. If you've ever used software, you would know, hey, why would they do that? Why would they just leave it all blank so you have to select one? I don't know. That's just how the software works. Once you get to the next page, because the thing is kind of clunky and you could be issuing a ballot to the wrong person, check the name, the date of birth, and the address to make sure you're issuing a ballot to the right person, please. In this case, the party doesn't matter because all parties can vote in this election. So it's really name, date of birth, and address. The only places where this gets a little confusing is when we have twins with the same birth date, the same last name, and a very similar first name. So be careful of the twin scenario. We got into there's more twins in Norwalk than you would think. Let's put it that way. So once we've chosen this, we've agreed this is correct. What we're going to do is we're going to insert a new ballot into the system. So we click the Insert button. Whoops, did I skip ahead? Yeah, okay. And we're going to get a form down here that's going to allow us to sort of fill in all the information about this ballot we're about to issue. First of all, it's an early voting ballot, right? Normally, we would just leave it at that, except in this election, we have early voting ballots and same-day registration ballots. I'll talk about same-day registration ballots in a minute, but for now, we're just checking ballot. Okay? We're going to make sure that the date issued is the day that the current date. So if you're working next Monday, it'll be October 20th, 2025, and the election date is the election date, so November 4th, 2024. Don't worry, once you've done this once, it'll remember it time after time. So if you're issuing ballot after ballot, most of these things will be remembered for you. It's a general election, not a primary, so there's a few options there, primary, special election, et cetera. It's a general election. And we're going to go ahead, and once we've got all that set up, we're going to hit update. Okay. Now I'm just going to show this different view of the exact same thing real quick. What I just showed you was that top section. There's 3 sections here. The top section is the only section you have to fill out. The middle section is the mailing address. Don't ask me why they have a mailing address for an early voting ballot, but it's there. Just ignore it. The bottom part is the return information. If you're a checker, you're just filling in the top. The return information gets filled out when the ballot gets returned back to the tabulator tender. Okay, so there's no need to fill this out. I think last year we had a couple folks filling it out because they could. So don't worry about that for now. Once we've done all that, we're going to hit update. Like I said that already. And then we're going to generate a label. So we've now created sort of a digital ballot inside the system. And now we're going to give the elector something that they can take over to the ballot clerk to prove that they're ready, that they need a ballot. Are there any questions about this? There's a lot of folks in here. What?
Insert, update, generate.
Insert, update, generate. There it is. Okay. So we're going to generate a label. When I go to generate a label, the system is going to give me a list of all of the early voting ballots that individual has ever been issued. I don't know why. I don't know why it wouldn't just give me the latest one that I just issued to them or the one for the current election, but it gives me a list of all of them. And the only reason I bring this up is because, what did Tyler just say? Insert, update, generate. Okay. If you forget the insert step and you just go to the generate step, I've seen people print out a label for the last election. So it'll get caught at another step, but I'd prefer it if it didn't happen. So the reason I got a blue arrow over here, it says date issued. That should be today's date, whatever the date is that you just issued. And the election date should be 11/04/2025. If it says something about last September or last November or last May, you probably forgot to create a new ballot. So we're going to hit generate electoral label, and the printer is going to print out a little label for us.
If that did happen, you can just hit back again, right?
Right, you can hit back, and maybe you're going to be very lucky. If you did print the wrong label, you'd be very lucky to have Barbara being your ballot clerk who's going to look at that and go, hey, that's the wrong date on there. She's got a good eye for that. But it will get caught in another step, but it's an extra step we don't need to take. So we're going to take this little label and we're going to put it on an early voting depository envelope. The early voting depository envelope is blue-ish. It has kind of a bluish typeset to it. And we're going to put the label at the bottom so that the signature and date is still exposed. Okay, because the elector is going to have to sign and date the envelope in the presence of the ballot clerk in a minute. So that seems like a lot. Is there any questions? Or most of you have done this, so if you haven't, ask questions or you can always reach out to us. You will get the hang of it. Yes?
You said you
have to log in, what's the login? Do you get that the day you're working?
Yeah, we save it on the computer.
Okay.
So when you first sit down, it'll say like vote 1, vote 2, vote 3. Every station has its own username and password, and then you'll just log in. We only activate them like a couple days before the election, and then we deactivate them after the election. Yeah.
Matt, what we ran into before was when they selected the wrong ballot, the coding for the ballot, like the 143
Yeah.
-3 shows up for municipal
Right.
elections, and then when it's federal and state elections, the coding is different.
Right. Yeah. When the ballot clerks look at the label, they're looking for like C1, A2. That's the municipal districting nomenclature. What Barbara's referring to is a lot of times if you print the wrong label, you'll see 14303, which is the state districting nomenclature. So that's one way for the ballot clerks to check it. Okay, I think we'll move on. So, okay. Sorry, what? Oh, yeah, go
I
ahead.
was just going to suggest that when the checker puts the label on the envelope, they should also eyeball it and make sure everything.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Do what?
Yeah, when you put the label on the envelope, make sure the name, if somebody just gave you their ID, Matthew Lane just came in to check, gave you their ID. If you look at it and it says, Elizabeth Lane, and the district number is weird, or the address, the date is wrong, take a quick check of it while you have to put it on the envelope, so you're looking right at it, so it's easy that's a good time to check. Thanks, Beth. So, okay, so that's our checker. Now we're going to move on to the ballot clerk. For those of you who've done ballot clerking at polling locations, you have one district, maybe two, that you have to deal with. Here we have not 13, but 14 different districts worth of ballots. And as I mentioned, it's not like an easier, some elections where the ballots are pretty much the same between districts. If we gave someone the wrong ballot, it wouldn't be too bad. There's 11 unique ballots in this election. So take the C district, for example. C1, C2, and C3 all have different ballots because of the taxing districts that they're in. So we really have to make sure that if an elector approaches the ballot clerk and it says C1 on there, we have to give them a C1 ballot. We have to be very, diligent about that. When we first get started, though, let me back up a little bit. It's also very important that we count all the ballots. We account for every one of the ballots. If you've ever been a ballot clerk at any of the polling locations, there's this end-of-night reconciliation that takes place between the tabulator, the ballot clerks, and the checkers. Well, we got to do that 14 times every night. So there's 14 instances. It's not that complicated. But it's a little more complicated. So we're going to walk through how we do that. We start by counting all the ballots that are lined up against the wall when we first arrive. So that's why we get there about a half an hour earlier, because if we're going to start with 50 ballots in each district, or 25 ballots in each district, or 100 ballots in each district, we need to know what we started with. We're going to issue ballots to electors that match their envelope. It's very important that they match the envelope. We're also going to make sure the elector signs and dates the envelope, because if they don't sign and date the envelope, the ballot is void. So it's really important. Then we're going to use a checklist. This is a checklist. I have a few pictures of it in a little bit. This checklist is, I think there's 14 pages here, one for every single district. Every time we issue a ballot to a district, we're going to put a mark on one of the numbers, right? It seems that this is much easier than trying to do the math behind the scenes. I see the folks who've done very, very well nodding their heads. So what I know is that when people use these checklists, the numbers come back really, really good. And as an ex-auditor, I really like numbers that come back really, really good. And then at the end of the night, we're going to complete the ballot clerk's worksheet, which I'll show you. This is the ballot clerk's worksheet. The ballot clerk's worksheet is the sum total of all of the ballots that were issued during the day. We still have to spoil ballots and track abandoned ballots. Spoiling a ballot, for those who might be new, if an elector goes to cast a ballot and for some reason they made a mistake, they can bring it back to the ballot clerk and exchange it for a blank one. That ballot that has the mistake on it has to be spoiled. It has to be marked as being void. So we're going to draw lines through those timing marks that I pointed out earlier, those numbers at the bottom of the ballot, and we're going to write spoiled on it and put it in a special envelope for spoiled ballots. That way, at the end of the night, we can account for the fact that, hey, we issued this many ballots, but we got 3 or 4 back as spoiled ballots, and we have to do this in each precinct. Abandoned ballots, I don't know that we've seen a lot of abandoned ballots in early voting, but it is kind of surprising how many people will go to the trouble of checking in, getting a ballot, and then leaving it in a voting booth or a privacy booth. That's an abandoned ballot. It didn't get checked in. The voter clearly didn't want to cast it, but we have to account for the fact that it's been brought back to us. So again, we draw lines through the timing marks, we write abandoned on it and put it in the abandoned envelope. And then once the totals are calculated at the end of the night, we're going to take all of our numbers, the ballot clerks take all of our numbers, and we're going to be part of that election reconciliation. If you've worked in the polling locations, you know it's done between the tabulator, the checker, and the ballot clerk. Here in early voting, we get the sort of checkers numbers and the tabulator tenders numbers straight out of the CVRS. So we're comparing 2 different sides of the computer against the hand-counted ballots that the ballot clerks have put together. Yeah. Yeah.
So a ballot clerk is giving out a ballot, then they come back and they sign the envelope and they're done voting. When did that happen? When they
At the ballot clerk.
Yeah. When do they sign these envelopes?
Oh, so the checker hands out the envelope,
Yeah.
and then the elector goes over to the ballot clerk, and the ballot clerk looks at it and says, that's a C1 ballot.
Okay.
Please sign and date the envelope, right? And then when they come back, the ballot clerk should check to make sure they signed it. We do it that way because it makes sense to have the ballot clerk sort of ensuring that people sign it, and they have a couple of seconds while the ballot clerk turns around to get the ballot. Otherwise, they would forget to do it, and then it would void the ballot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Brendan.
The ballot clerk, we don't go and get the actual paper. We have them sign it right in front of us. Then we go get the ballot.
Okay.
If you don't, anything can happen, and somewhere you're going to forget. You're going to get the wrong ballot, or you're not going to have them sign it. So we don't even get it. We have them sign it and date it right in front of us. Then we go back.
Then you get the ballot.
Yes.
Okay, I trust her. She's really good at this.
And then when you have that position over there?
The tabulator, the ballot receptacle guardian, your tabulator tender, yeah.
Before they scan it, we take another look and make sure the signature and date is
Right,
also
right,
there.
right. We'll get to that. You're exactly right, though. Before people scan their ballots, they can also, you have another chance to look at it. Correct. Okay, so I talked about the ballot clerk's worksheet already. On that part, this is what the ballot clerk's worksheet looks like for early voting. If you've worked in the polling locations, you've seen something almost exactly like this, but only 1 column, right? Now we've got 14 columns. And it looks daunting, I'm sorry, but it's not that bad. It's a lot of counting, but we somehow, I mean, the last election, our numbers were very, very good. So it seems to be working. Basically, it's how many ballots did you start with, how many did you issue, how many did you end up with at the end of the night, and how many spoiled ballots and abandoned ballots were there. And that's basically it. There is a row here for emergency ballots, which we really hope we don't have to use, but if somebody were to hand you if a registrar were to hand you emergency ballots, you could put them in that row.
What do you mean emergency ballot?
If we run out of ballots for some reason, right, another thing that the ballot clerks, do is when they're sort of starting up their day, they're looking at you look at the ballots, and you might see that some are maybe faded, or the print is light, or there's a double stamp or something weird that's happened. I've never seen it happen. I don't think it's ever happened in Norwalk, knock on wood, but I've heard stories of folks getting like, oh, here's our pack of ballots, and they know they have 100 ballots, and that's enough, and then you open it up, and like every third one is blank, or it's the wrong district, and then suddenly you don't have enough for the day. It's election day, and you've got to print ballots and start hand counting them. There's a process for that we know about that we would hopefully never have to go through, but we think in terms of emergencies and things like that, so we leave a line there for like emergency ballots in the off chance that we figure it's better to put a line item here and then never need it as opposed to having to figure it out later. So, okay. Let's see. Oh, right, so I kind of just said that it's really these top three lines that we're worried about. How many did you start off with? How many did you get during the course of the day? And then how many did you end up left over at the end of the day? And then at the very bottom, there's a little bit of math that goes in. It says, how many did you start with? How many were you given? How many did you hand out? How many were spoiled? And that's the number that's going to be used for that reconciliation at the end of the night. So, okay, one point that I've been asked to bring up here. One of our jobs is to make sure that. Sure, let me just finish this point. I'll send it. Sure. One of the things that we do is we make sure everybody sign their envelope, sign and date the envelope. This is a complicated ballot. There's a lot of contests on it. Some are choose 2 out of a field of 5. Some are choose 3 out of a field of 7. Some are choose 4 out of a field of 12. Some are choose 5 candidates out of a field of 20. It's a complicated ballot, and it's human instinct to want to say, hey, by the way, make sure to pay attention. You only choose 4 here. You only choose 3 here. We can't tell them to vote for 2 people on this contest, because that would be like leading the elector. It would be like sort of like we're trying to nudge them in a direction to vote a certain way. They may not want to vote for that particular contest. So what we can do is tell them, we can remind them that there's questions on both sides of the ballot, but we can't tell them, oh, don't forget to vote the ballot. We can just say, oh, there's questions on both sides of the ballot. Does that kind of make sense to everybody? We don't want to cross that line between leading the elector and being informative. So instead of saying, hey, there are 4 candidates, you should vote for those 4 candidates, remind them that there's a lot of contests on this ballot that have multiple choice. The instructions are at the top of each contest, and that way they can read the instructions. The instructions are in English and Spanish. I think there are other translation services available. But just understand that there's a fine line there between trying to be helpful and seeming like you're telling them to vote a certain way. Again, I think the reason people ask me to say this is because there have been concerns in the past. So if there's any questions about that, ask me, ask your moderator, ask the registrars, and we'll make sure that we have it cleared up. So this is almost, I'm almost done. Diana, can I have like 5 more minutes? And then we'll have a good stopping point. The ballot receptacle guardian. Ballot receptacle, so far we've been through a couple of stations. The elector is checked in, they're in the computer, they have an envelope with their information on it, they've gone to the ballot clerk, they've gotten their ballot, and now they've voted, and now they're going to the ballot receptacle guardian. The ballot receptacle guardian is roughly what a tabulator tender does at a polling location, except what they're going to do is scan in that label that was issued to them in the first step. So it's sort of like now we're receiving back that ballot. So we're going to thank the elector for voting. Oh, we're also going to give them a sticker, of course. I think someone actually complained they didn't get a sticker last time. So if you're a ballot receptacle guardian, please give the stickers out. We are in no shortage of stickers, I believe. We want to give out the stickers. We assist them to scan out. They can scan their own envelopes out. The scanners face the electors, so the elector can scan it and put it right in the box themselves. And we direct electors to place their ballot in the ballot receptacle. And then, of course, we give them a sticker. This is what the screen looks like on the same CVRS system, but this is the ballot receptacle guardian's view. The election date has to be the election date. The return type has to be today, or whatever day it is today. And then the election code, it's not going to be primary, it's going to be general, okay? It should be general. And again, these things you can set up as when you first get going. And a couple of important things to note here. The time returned doesn't automatically update. So if there's a long period of time between electors coming through, if there's a slow period, you might want to just refresh this screen or change the time yourself. So that's one heads up. The second thing is when they scan the barcode that's on the label, the cursor, the mouse, you have to click inside this thing that says voter ID, the red box down here at the bottom. Because basically what happens is when you scan the barcode, it's just putting the voter ID in and hitting enter for you. So when you load this page, make sure that the mouse, you've clicked inside the voter ID box. Those are just a few little points. Any questions about that position? Okay. Did that. Yep, so we scan that. And why did I do it? The part that's unique, more unique to early voting than any of the other roles. The other roles are really very similar to what we do at the polling locations. However, the assistant registrars in early voting are doing something very different. Well, they can check in electors, much like the checkers do, and they do curbside voting. I'll get to that in a second, which is pretty much the same. But they can update elector registrations, and the way they do that is different because they're using the CVRS to actually make those changes. And in this election, because it's a general election, they can actually register new voters. So we're going to walk through that process. And then if there's any questions or any concerns, they can have a discussion with the actual registrars for guidance and reach out to room 103 in case there's any questions. And questions will come up. Don't be scared to call the registrars. We want to hear from you. They want to hear from you. We'd rather do it right than have somebody try and guess around a problem. There's so many little nuances to some of these things. Please call the registrars, call the office. First thing we're going to start with is some of the general overviews of things that registrars can do, assistant registrars can do. The first one is registering an elector. Someone walks in and says, "Hi, I'm new to Norwalk. I've never been registered anywhere else. I want to become registered in Norwalk. Here's my ID." They show what's on your left-hand side of ID. Remember the ID pages? There were two types of IDs. We want to use that more enhanced version of ID. We're going to make a copy of that ID. Okay, and there's going to be a copy machine sitting right about where Vera is. Or maybe not where Vera is. No, where Louise is. No, somewhere over here somewhere. There's going to be a copy machine right here. Some people will have their IDs on their phones. Tyler has set up an email. They'll be able to email you their ID, right? If they have like screenshots. Sorry? A proof of ID, right? If they have a electric bill or something of that nature, they'll be able to email that information to the assistant registrars. So we're going to print all that out because we want to keep it for our records. And of course, we have to fill out a voter registration card, and there'll be a big stack of empty voter registration cards for the assistant registrars to hand out. If you're a demonstrator, you'll get the idea that as people are wanting to register, they'll need to get they'll need to get a voter registration card. You'll show them what the email is. They can email this information to the email that we'll be checking, and then we can print out that information, and that'll expedite their registration. So now, we've got all the paperwork filled out, and we actually want to go ahead and register somebody. We're going to, inside the CVRS, once again, we're going to go to Activities, Voter Registration, and we're going to type in the person's name and birth date and hit enter. And that's going to bring us to a page where we're going to fill out a big, long form about all the information that is that person. Don't worry about voter ID. It's blank because it's going to fill it in for you. The last 4 digits of the Social Security number, the DMV ID, that's a driver's license. Enter in these numbers. You should have them. They should be part of the voter registration card. Now, from my standpoint, I'm going to say please enter those pieces of information, but I don't know, Anissa, Trinetta, I mean, do you have any like guidelines as to when or what, not to use these things? No?
Well, I know this certain, like, where it says, you need to put in when it says type of registration, you gotta put in person, not mail-in, because it's not mailed in.
Correct. So, right. So it's going to be an in-person, right down here. Where is that? It's down here.
Right there, right by your hand.
Right by my hand? Type of registration, yeah, in person. Right. So gender, obviously telephone.
You don't have to worry about the telephone, but you have to put the gender and the party.
Right. Now, you don't technically have to have it, but we're going to ask if you can get it. It should be on the registration form. The same thing with the last 4 digits of the social and the DMV ID. Those help us next year. Those help with our canvas process, because if somebody's registered in another state or if somebody's registered somewhere else, the computer does those sort of interstate checks to make sure that these folks are, not registering somewhere else.
The last name is Bubba and the first name is McFarland?
I absolutely made that up about 2 hours ago, so it could be anything. I didn't know, I needed a screenshot, so I just typed something in, I'm sorry.
Somebody doesn't want to identify the gender.
Yeah.
I don't know is there an option of, and this, what are the options for gender? Is it male, female, and like no, and unknown? Unknown. So I think that's the option there. So yeah, so this is the first set of that screen. The next set of screens, again, if they do have a mailing address where they live in a certain place, but they want their mail sent somewhere else, they can fill that out. Previous voter address, again, I don't think it's required, but if somebody's moved from another state, it's not required, right? But if somebody's moved from another state, it helps us track down whether to make sure that they're still not registered in that other state, or if they are, that they have a special type of registration that way they can't cast ballots in both locations. So yeah, fill this all in.
What's the reasons for under,
NVRA. What's an NVRA reason?
NVRA is, it could be someone is changing their, like if we made a mistake, the registered voters made a,
Oh, it's a change reason?
yeah.
Oh, it's a change reason.
Voter.
Okay. So it's a, so for those of you who don't know, that's Anissa back there. She knows everything about registering people. Thank you. Sorry, the NVRA reason right here.
Oh, okay.
Right. So in other words, if you're registered and we realize that your date of birth is wrong, we could call it a change without having to re-register you. But if you change your address, then we have to say change of address. So we classify what the change is.
Remember last year we had that big issue where people, birth dates was wrong?
Yes.
And we had to go back down the hallway. That was a mistake that they said that. we
Right.
had wrong.
Right.
So we had to change it, so we have to put, we made it.
Registrar correct. Right. And I think I have that as an example coming up.
Wrong birth years?
Right, right. And I have an example of that coming up where there are changes. But this is the big one for assistant registrars, because this is something that we're doing that's unique to this election, in this election cycle. Oh, go ahead.
Do you have to do the whole social security number or just the?
Last 4 digits.
That's it.
Yeah.
And the last?
And it's not required. If they don't give it to you, if you don't have it, you don't have to put it in. But if you have it, please put it in.
Just the 4?
Just the last 4.
You don't have to do anything else?
Yeah.
If you don't have it, next year when they go and vote, it'll tell us that they need to show us identification because we don't have the last four of their social, and they don't know what
Yeah.
it is.
It saves a step for them and us if you have it.
The last 4 can help identify someone like.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. They use algorithms like look.
Only 4, last 4.
Yeah,
No, it's your name and Eileen, it's your name in the last 4 digits.
yeah. If you have a name, last 4 digits, and an address, that you can get pretty close to who's who. You know the way the algorithm works. Okay, anyway, I don't want to. I want to keep going here. Okay, so when we fill this out, we're going to hit accept. Okay, and what's going to happen next is you're going to get a letter that prints out of the printer that's sitting over here. Okay, we're going to take that letter and we're going to put it with all the other paperwork we've generated, which is their voter registration card, the proof of identity, and the letter, and we're going to put it in. And I believe it's a blue bag, but it may be a bin that sits back here for all the new voter registrations and changes for voter registrations that happen. And then that's going to go back to room 103, which is going to get checked by experts like Anissa and where's Trinetta? And Trinetta, and they're going to make sure that everybody did it right. Please do it right. Because she will hunt you down. Yeah, and if you have any questions, please again call room 103. If there's something weird comes up, I'm going to give you some scenarios that we expect to come up, but I guarantee you some weird scenario is going to come up that you're going to have to go. Let me just call 103. Okay. So now that we've registered this new elector, why are they here? Because they want to vote, right? We still have to issue them a ballot, right? Okay. So once the voter is registered, we know they're registered, this should look familiar. We're going to go to early voting. We're going to search for them, right? Because we have to now start this process over. There's no like part of we just registered somebody, just say, hey, let's issue them a ballot. We have to now issue them a ballot. And we're going to check to make sure it's absolutely the right person. And then we're going to hit insert, just like we did before. See this one little change up here where it says same-day registration? It said early voting there before. Okay? That's the one little change that's different. It's still a general election. All the election dates are the same. The date issued is the same. It's still in person. We've got to make sure that we make that same-day registration. So when we issue the ballot to them, the computer knows that this is a person who just registered. Okay? And I'll warn you that the computer will remember the last thing you chose in that box. So if you're issuing early voting ballots, and then you come to this page, it's not going to know that you just registered somebody. You have to tell it it's same-day registration ballot. And then if the next person who comes up to you is just checking in, you got to remember to change it back.
Well, you're going to have this separate
Correct. So for those of you who haven't done this before, there's 6 computers in the front of the room. The 6 on the left are just for checking in. The 2 on the right are just for assistant registrars and making changes. But the assistant registrars can check people in. So if it gets really busy and no one's registering, they occasionally do check people in. You're absolutely correct. We like to keep them separate, but there's actually a 7th computer over at the moderator's station that can also check people in and do registrations. But that's why I bring this up. Please just learn to keep an eye on that, because yes.
For the election code, should that be saying in person or general? Election code, yeah.
General. The election code is general.
Oh, okay, all right.
Because it would say it would have said primary in the last one. And
Issue type is in person.
yeah, issue type is in person. I don't even know why there's an option for early voting to be. I think it's because they took the absentee ballot system in CVRS and just copied it. So it's got a lot of stuff like left over from absentee balloting. So again, just like we did before, you're going to generate the label. We're going to make sure that it's the ballot that we just created. And it's going to print the label. And then, here's the second little change. This is a different envelope. Okay? The other envelope, I think I said it was like sort of a blue font face. This is a black font face. But you really can't tell them apart unless you really look at the two of them next to each other. They're very similar looking. The one thing you can tell is that this says same day registration at the top. The other one said early voting ballot at the top. So just be clear that if you are an assistant registrar, don't get the envelopes confused, please. Make sure you know which one you're using. If the elector asks, the affirmation is also slightly different as to what you're attesting that you're doing, because you're attesting that you just registered and are voting. The sticker goes at the top on this? The sticker goes at the top on this one because we always have to leave space for the elector to sign and date.
So
Question?
somebody registers and they've never voted here, but they'll have to be in the computer on this list of people depending upon where they live, because that's everybody in the city.
I'm sorry, repeat the...
Like, you said, oh, and then you go and, I mean, with that person who registered for that first day.
So I've never registered before. I walk into Norwalk and I say, I want to register. Is that...
Right, they're not going to be.
They're not in the computer.
They're not in the computer.
They're not in the computer. They're right. And that's a good assumption, because I'm going to ask some questions in a second about changing people's addresses. And then we'll see how to handle that. They're not in, right. They just moved in from Florida. They just moved in from Wyoming. They just turned 18, or whatever it is. They've just never decided. They never wanted to vote. They just became a citizen, whatever it is. They're not in the system. That's a new registration. And that's, yeah. And pardon? No. Remember, I'll go back to it if you want, but there's 2 types of ID, right? There's what you need to check in if you're in the system, and there's what you need to register. And basically, if you're filling out a new voter ID, a new voter card, a voter registration card, it's everything on the right. And if you're in the system and attesting that that's who you are, it's everything on the left. Okay. So, and now this is a good segue, actually. There's a bunch of little nerdy things that we can do as assistant registrars that come up. One thing that you might see is you'll find when an elector walks in, they say, I'd like to vote, and the checker's going to get a pop-up on the screen that says the voter is currently inactive. Okay, an inactive voter is sort of, for some reason, they can't vote right away. Okay, they've been canvassed. Someone reported that they'd moved out of state or something like that, or moved in some way. They haven't voted in a long time, so they've been canvassed. They're inactive. But they're standing right in front of you. they can reactivate because they have they can give you the ID to activate themselves. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and we can make them active again. Here's a quick quiz. Which type of ID do we think we're going to need to reactivate? Right, my right side or your left? This side? This side. Right, so the kind you need for a registration, right? Yeah, because you're registering again, basically. That's that side, right? Right, it's this side. Right, because you're not just checking in, you're actually upping your, right?
Driver's license or passport.
You don't, well, does a driver's license have a name and address on it? Name and photo, name and signature? Yeah. Right, so that's, yeah. Right. Right. All those things meet those requirements, but it's not super required that you have that. Yeah, Barbara.
Years ago, when I was a checker, I had someone that told me they were a convicted felon. Their name was still on there, and I don't know what happened to that, because I gave it to the moderator.
Good. You give that to the moderator. Give that to the moderator. Don't, just keep the line moving. Yeah, and I'll say that to everybody. If anything comes up that's at all, you don't understand, you have a question, you don't think, you think there's anything, give it to the moderator. Let them deal with it. Keep the line moving. Whatever comes up. I mean, if somebody walks up to you with a hunting license from 10 years ago and has their name and signature on it and says, I want to check in, your moderator might allow them to check in with that. But if you have a question about it, call the moderator. Call the moderator. Okay. So here our elector is inactive. So we're going to have the elector fill out a new registration card. We're going to update the CVRS. I'll show you how to do that. And then you can check them in, or you can have somebody else check them in if you're really busy. But we just took their registration card, but technically this is an early vote. Does that make sense to everybody? Because it's not a same-day registration because it's not a new registration. They're already in the system, so even though you're reactivating them and you're taking a registration card, but it's an early vote. Okay? And these are the quirky things. Again, if you have questions about these things, ask your moderator, move them on. So we're going to go ahead and go to voter information. We're going to find the person in the system. We can, again, search by date of birth. You can search by first, last name, 3 characters plus an asterisk for a wild card, that kind of thing. Search, find the person in the database, hit change, and then make the change. And then where did it go? Did I get another screenshot? To follow up to what Anissa was saying. Where is it?
Right in front of you.
Right here?
Yeah, a little up.
What am I looking at? Status. No, status is active, yeah. So you're going to make the status active, obviously. Thank you. What I was looking for was there's a change reason, which Anissa was referring to. And that's correct. It's called registrar correct. So you're making a slight correction. And that's inherently why it's an early voting ballot, because it's not a new registration, it's a correction. So, okay, what about change of address? Somebody shows up, they've moved. They're still in Norwalk, but they've moved. In Norwalk, I have that up there. Again, we have the elector fill out a new registration card. We update the CVRS the same way. We can check them in. And again, this is an early voting ballot. They've made a change within Norwalk. And then we send them on to the ballot clerk. Now let's say you go to look an elector up and it says this elector is off. Okay? So we know what an active elector is. They can just cast a ballot. An inactive elector can become active because for some reason, they've been canvassed or they've fallen off the list for some reason. An elector that is off is effectively unregistered. Okay? For some reason, they haven't voted in so long, their voter registration has just lapsed. Or there's been some scenario where they've been reported by another state as being registered there, they've been turned off. An off elector is effectively, they're off. So if that person wants to vote, they need to re-register from scratch.
So they won't be even in the system, right?
They're in the system.
But where is it filled that says off?
It'll tell you, if you look up Matthew Lane, it'll pop up and say, this elector's turned off. Right? So it's almost like on your computer you have stuff in the recycle bin. Like the CVRS hasn't gotten around to just deleting it yet. So, because by state law, once you turn someone off, you have to wait a year before they really get deleted. Okay? And there's a big discussion as to well, if they're re-registering, should we use their old account? The answer is no, create a new account for now, but if you have any questions, call the registrar's office.
Or if we could still see that it's off, they can turn it back on and they'll use their same number.
Yeah, I think there was a discussion in the office today about whether that was right or not. That's what I'm saying. I would call, Lauren had a different opinion on it. I would say, you can't go wrong by creating a new one. If there is an issue, the office later can merge the duplicates. But for now, I'd say, if something is just too much, call 103, and there'll be a phone right in front of you.
We shouldn't go into that far. They don't want us to get into it that far. So any problems like that, automatically call Lauren and Katie, and they'll come down, and they'll help us out.
Yeah.
They've been here long,
The-
they'll come down.
It's unlikely things like this are going to happen. Most people who, when they're turned off, they've moved out of the state, that sort of thing. Okay. Okay. Another scenario. Someone walks in and they want to transfer into Norwalk from another municipality within Connecticut. Say they live in Glastonbury and they want to vote here and they have their ID. I've just got my ID at the DMV, and I used to live in Glastonbury. We're going to have the elector fill out a registration card, and we're going to go in and find them in Glastonbury. And we're going to move them into Norwalk. I'm going to show you how to do that. And we're going to process it like a same-day registration. But here's the hiccup. If it's early voting, any of the 14 days in early voting, we can just go get that elector in the CVRS and move them into Norwalk. But if it's election day, you have to call Glastonbury because you have to make sure they haven't voted yet, right? We don't want them casting a ballot in Glastonbury and then coming down here, changing their address and getting another ballot, so we have to call them, okay?
So the system's not updated enough to show that you were voting extra places?
Early voting is updated immediately. So if somebody comes in the middle of early voting and you move their record to Norwalk and they've already cast a ballot, and then they go to cast another ballot, it won't let you issue them a ballot because it knows they've already voted. On election day, you don't use the CVRS, the computer-based system. You're using paper books still because that's how the thing is written. So on election day, if somebody goes into same-day registration, you have to call Glastonbury to see if they've already cast a ballot. On that election day, you end up having to call their polling location. And yeah, you can imagine that's how that's going to work out. Because you've got to find the polling location this person is assigned to in Glastonbury, because you all know the polling locations in Glastonbury, right? I don't, yeah.
Question. So when we call Glastonbury, we have to call each one of their places, or I thought we called their main office?
You do call, you call the main office who's supposed to, call them and get back to you. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
And then you've got this elector standing in.
Yeah, and you've got an elector standing in front of you waiting and going, come on, can I vote or not? Yeah. Yeah. And from what I understand from the registrar, you can give it 10 minutes. And if they don't get back to you, then you process it because their ballot is still in an envelope. So if for some reason Glastonbury gets back to you and says, oh, no, they voted, you could still pull it. So, okay, so that's that. Yeah, and these are the little nuancy things that, Anissa was mentioning. Anything like this comes up, call 103, call the registrar's office. I mean, I'm trying to do this to make sure that you understand that we can do this. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to do this, So here's how we're going to look that elector up. Same search area, but we're going to click this little option here that says statewide, right? And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to enter a date of birth in there. And it's amazing how many people are born on each day in the entire state of Connecticut. There's pages of people born on every day. So you might want to refine the search by putting an extra something in there. I put the first 3 digits of the first 3 characters of my last name in there. That refined it enough to just pick me up. So, an asterisk, yeah. Yeah, wildcard asterisk, yeah, asterisk, yeah. So, where are we? Okay, so I'm just going through scenarios at this point. We go to check somebody in, and we get this pop-up at the top here. This thing says, the voter should present an ID at the time of the election. I think somebody brought this up. I think Anissa brought it up before, that if you don't put the last 4 digits of the Social Security number in there, it's going to continually ask the elector for ID. For those of you who've worked the polls, there's like a little asterisk that's next to someone's name if they haven't completed their registration enough. For this election, what do you think we should do with this? We ignore it.
Because it's statewide.
Because it's a municipal election and that's a statewide statute. So, yeah. Is anybody confused by this? Because I've been doing this for a year and a half, and this is still I don't know. Okay. Sorry. What? Okay. Okay, so oh, go ahead. Right, but that's a HAVA requirement. Go ahead. Yes. So remember the left and the right side? This was the check. You could just check people in with this. If that thing came up, you would normally, then you'd have to use this side of ID. You'd have to use the other ID type. And if it was a state election year, you'd basically send them to the assistant registrars to look at their other ID. Yeah, they're probably standing there with their driver's license, which meets which is fine.
Because I know as a checker, most people have
A driver's license. Yeah. So it's a moot issue most of the time anyway, but you got to know the process, right? And then once they voted, everything's fine. So, okay. So that's as many obscure scenarios as I could come up with to go over now that everybody's eaten. We'll get on to something a little more mundane. One of the last things that the assistant registrars are responsible for, actually, how much time do we have? Not much time, is curbside voting. There's a sign that's going to be posted outside. People can pull up in the driveway, call the number, the moderator's phone will ring. The moderators will say, someone needs curbside assistance, and then send the assistant registrars out to deal with it. That's pretty straightforward.
Actually pull into those handicap spots right by the loading dock?
People used it. People used it this year. It was good, and it was good in at the polling locations as well. So yeah, we were happy about that. Given the time, I want to just touch on a few other things. How many people here have ever used the IVS system? A couple hands have gone up. Excellent. The IVS system is a system that allows people with certain disabilities to be issued a regular ballot, and then it helps them complete the ballot. The assistant registrars are responsible for this. How many people are here are actually assistant registrars? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, great. It's pretty self-explanatory. I've got some slides in here. And I guess the main point is when you first turn it on, it'll ask you which district you want to work in. You tell it which district ballot to fill in, and then you put their ballot in it, face up, left side in. And once you've done that, you kind of hand it over to the person who needs it. And they can usually get going. So that's, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I also don't want to cut it short. It's a very good tool to have. If you find somebody is, their hands are shaking, they can't fill out a ballot, they're having trouble walking, there's some other reason they need assistance to fill out a ballot and they don't have a person to help them with it, the IVS is a good option. It's there, it has to be here, so it's good to know that it's there. Using the IVS, okay. Integrated voting systems. I think it's the name of the company. It's a ballot completion system. So yeah, it lets them listen to the ballot, it lets them read the ballot more specifically. They can use a touch screen, they can use like a little puffer or a keypad or a big button to help fill out the ballot. Quickly, what the moderator does is in charge on site, opens and closes the polls, completes the moderator's return. If any of you are new moderators and want to see what the new moderator return looks like, I have a couple copies of it up here. I don't know, you might need a copy of it, yeah, because you're new to this. So we've been using this, we use this for one whole election. The moderators have a phone-based translation service on their phones. It's called Interpreter's Insight. If anyone's having trouble communicating in one of 100+ languages, the moderators are able to open that up and get a live translator that is recorded on the line to help you translate. So if somebody shows up, they only speak Hmong or Lakota or something like that, you can actually get a live translator on the phone. A point of the translation, please don't try and speak someone else's language if it's not your native language or you feel completely comfortable doing it. That's what we have the language translation services for. One little misunderstanding can go the wrong way real quick. The moderators return just a couple bits of the overview of that. Especially for early voting, it's a stripped down version of the moderator's return. There used to be all this long verbiage about what happened to the tabulators and how the tabulators were secured. Well, we're not using tabulators, so we pulled all of that out of the language. The IVS system startup page, if you ever worked a polling location, you know you need the IVS system startup page in the moderator's return. We only need one for the first day because we leave it up for the duration of early voting. The oath is issued. I mentioned before about the reconciliation report. At the end of night, we do the checkers, the ballot clerks, and the tabulator tenders. These are instructions on how to get that report out of the CVRS. And basically, you follow this, and you print that report, and you put it in the book. So I know a lot of times people call the text to do that. That's great. You can still call us, but in case we're not here, it's follow this and put it right in top of this. So we're trying to simplify all these reports. Yeah, and this is what those instructions have you do. It looks like this. And this is the end of night report. We went over the ballot clerk's return, and that's a speed run through everything that is early voting. Are there any questions? Because I'm sorry if I overcomplicated the assistant registrar's section. Russell.
Just remind everybody that at the end of the night, there's a process for counting and sorting. Nobody leaves until we're done.
Okay, yeah, so thank you. Yeah, for those of you who've never done it, we do have to go through all the envelopes and make sure that all of them are accounted for and that they're sorted by district. The ballot clerks are also, possibly counting ballots. So please don't look at your watch and go, oh, it's 6 o'clock, I'm out. There's a lot of other processes that are, that are taking place that we can really use your help. So yeah, please don't leave until the moderator has released you. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay.